Welcome back to another episode of the Balcony Podcast. It's just me this time because it is episode 11, which is my favorite number, and it means so much to me. I guess my resonance with it started when I was younger, and it was the number of the first few places that I lived in, and always just appeared everywhere for me. I even ended up getting a scar through footy that looks perfectly like the number 11, and the joke was that I gave the scar to myself, which I did not. It was always my footy number, and I was very, very protective of it, particularly when I wasn't playing anymore. And someone introduced me to the concept of angel numbers over the last year. And I'm going to read out the definition of it because I didn't really know what they were until I was introduced to them. So angel numbers are recurring sequences of numbers that have spiritual significance according to numerology. So for number 11, this is what I looked into. I've got a few dot points here about what number 11 means in numerology. It says number 11 is the master number that is related to karma. This number is also a symbol of spiritual awakening. Angel number 11 has the vibrations of inspiration and enlightenment. And if 11 is your angel number, then your mission is to help other people and to serve humanity. Another meaning behind this number is that your thoughts become your reality. And I think given that what the balcony is all about, the content on the previous podcast, and particularly in what I'm going to share on this one, I think it's pretty cool to see how closely that aligns with, I guess, myself, this concept. And I guess it's further deepened my connection with the number. I've been using this time between podcasts to do some pretty amazing things with Justos in the business, but also to take more opportunities to really pause and reflect on my growth since my last solo one back in December. I watched all of my previous episodes back and just felt this real sense of gratitude, and it really was inspirational and sparked a lot of thoughts, which turned into a lot of notes, which is why this one may go for a while. But I just wanted off the bat just to say how grateful I am to have had anyone that's been involved in this so far. Watching it back just really, made me feel a really, really great sense of gratitude for sure. Watching it back, I realized that previously there was also a lot of uncertainty around, I guess, what the balcony is and what it means. And I think through marinating on watching them back, I've realized that I guess it's a way of life, I suppose. It's a frequency to operate on, and I did make some notes on things that I think that this frequency attracts. Vulnerability, self-awareness, support, empowerment, alignment, speaking your truth, celebrating the wins, mindfulness. And I'm still learning to live this way as well, to not do everything myself and wear the brunt and responsibility of things all the time, like I guess I really previously have in life. But as I'll talk about more later, I think it's more a way to be, and a way to live your life. I've realized that the balcony is also a process of unpacking and delayering, your childhood trauma, to allow you to connect more deeply with your true, authentic self. For me, I still realize that sometimes I probably feel more alone than I really am. And I'm still working through some issues with intimacy and certain things that stem from a lot of things that have happened to me previously. But I've learned, and I'm still learning, that when you let things out, you're no longer a prisoner to them. You're not a victim anymore. You're releasing, the toxicity that it manifests in you when you do keep it in the dark. Someone that I'm really grateful to have in my life right now, Jessie. She asked me recently what I was passionate about as a kid, and I thought about it, and I realized that I don't think I was ever really truly passionate about anything until I freed myself from a lot of the weight that I was previously carrying. And I guess that's what the balcony is all about. The process of getting it out, becoming free, unraveling, And I guess it's a different way of looking at a problem, getting on the balcony, so to speak. Looking at the problem from a different perspective reminds me of a scene from one of my favorite movies, Patch Adams, which has got Robin Williams in it, which I'll talk more about him a bit later. But it's a true story. Premise is this guy rediscovers his passion, purpose in life, and wants to become a doctor, but really help people. And very funny. There's a big twist. It's quite sad, but definitely recommend watching it. And the scene I'm talking about, the other character in this scene is Arthur Mendelsohn, who is a big oil tycoon, I think, but philosopher, very smart man. And they're at this stage of the movie in a mental hospital, and Patch, Robin's character, fixes his cup, and he offers up some wisdom to him in quite a unique way.
How many do you see?
There are 4 fingers, Arthur.
No. Look at me. You're focusing on the problem. If you focus on the problem, you can't see the solution. Never focus on the problem. Look at me.
So he looks through his fingers right into Arthur's face, and he sees, instead of seeing the fingers, they start to blur. And then Arthur offers up this explanation, or this paradigm perspective, shall we say, that sets him on the path for the rest of the movie. That, I don't know, I just think it's a really cool way to look at life.
Yes, it's a good answer. Yes, see what no one else sees. See what everyone else chooses not to see. Out of fear, conformity, and laziness. See the whole world anew each day.
I think I realized through this part of my journey that ultimately everything begins and ends with, understanding yourself. There's some books that I've been reading, some content I've been consuming that speak to this a little bit. A book called Blink that I got from my friend Meg. One of the lines in there was, the key to good decision making is not knowledge, it's understanding. Another book called Legacy, shout out to you, Nada, talks about the Lombardi model, who Vince Lombardi is probably the most famous NFL American football coach ever. And his perspective is that only by knowing yourself can you become a successful leader. And for him, it all begins with self-knowledge, a fundamental understanding and appreciation of our own values. From the same book, there was a line from Bill George, who's a Harvard business professor, and he said, leadership begins and ends with authenticity. It's being yourself, being the person you were born to be. And I guess if just, similar to number 11, if we keep the vibes consistent, this type of content and this theory, and even not in just the stuff that I'm reading, but the conversations I'm having, the people I'm meeting, the connection I'm making, this sense of self and that empowerment piece is just super, super clear and important. I think I realized that through this understanding of myself, that I'm able to choose who I want to be, as opposed to who I could be. I think, for example, for me, if I didn't have this understanding, it would be very easy for me to maybe be angry like my dad and present those things that manifested from my memories and experiences previously. But, I've learned that I understand that I live with that, and that being vulnerable helps strip off that painful trauma element to it and sort of removes the power that it has over you. And I actually started taking some notes in my phone, some large notes. And I wanted to share one specifically that related to this verbatim. I wrote that, I think as human beings, we can get too caught up in who we think we are. You can have the most ambitious or even sinister of thoughts, but ultimately it's the things that you do that define who you are actually being. I think that upon reflection and consistently creating a space for that, you can really understand the person that you're becoming or who you have been. And life starts to slow down. Our thoughts can play tricks on us. We paint an illusion based on fear or insecurity, or even take too much substance from what things like social media feed our egos. I know that personally, sometimes my analytical brain can be my worst enemy. When I stop and look at the things that I'm actually doing and the person that I'm being, I start to self-love and self-appreciate a lot more, and I'm able to really understand and be proud of who I am. And this is a big part of the growth for me, is I want to actually stop and talk a little bit about that. How proud of myself I am. I've received some pretty amazing feedback recently, for this podcast, for the things I'm doing with the business. I was showered in love on my birthdays. You get to when you live overseas. And then even just some instances, I'd say just random for no reason ones. My close friend Connor sent me a message. He was driving to uni one morning, and a song came on that reminded him of me, and he just told me that he thought about how in that moment I would be really proud of what he's doing, and how proud of me he is what I'm doing. And my friend Tonks, we don't speak very often, but he would just call randomly, and we just share a really nice, deep connection and understand each other. And he just says the nicest things about me when we do speak, and can't believe the things I'm doing. And my dear friend Logan, a Balcony Podcast alumni, I was speaking to him last week, and going through some stuff that I'm going through right now, and he paused and made a big effort of talking about how much growth he's seen in me, and just how genuinely proud of me he is. And I've taken an opportunity to really reflect and give myself that space and speak those words about myself more. And it's been pretty amazing. A big shift as well is that I'm noticing that I'm just starting to appreciate the little things more. I'll be driving around and just smiling and laughing at things, and I'll see someone with their dog or anything, and I'm just, I don't know, enjoying things more. And there's this drive from Sydney down to Vic, and no Aussie guys that's talking about different places here in Canada. There's a little hill, and you come over, and when it's clear, you can see like all of Victoria just laced with the mountains over in Washington, and it's just beautiful. And every single time I just feel things, and I don't think I would have noticed or had the capacity to feel these things and appreciate these things before. And it's really nice that I'm like that now. But it'd be remiss not to talk more specifically, I guess, about Justos and how proud I am of the work that I'm doing there, and the fulfillment I'm getting out of the stuff that I'm doing. The sales stuff, or the weaseling nature, as Justin lovingly calls it. The donation side of things, giving back, and the growth we're having. It's just, it's pretty special. It's pretty amazing. I'm so proud of myself and us and the team, and I'm just so grateful for the three other boys, for the support, for the opportunity, and just for who they are. Adam, Eric, Justin, I love you boys. You're very special humans, and I'm just so proud of us and what we're doing. I think this shift in perspective to do with myself and how proud I am reminds me of another one of my favorite movies, starring my man, my favorite Aussie, rest in peace, Heath Ledger, in A Knight's Tale, where he goes from looking like this to this, on the premise that he is working for a knight, and he wants to become one. And it's just hilarious. It's a really good movie. The story behind how they make the movie is really cool as well. But yeah, there's this theme present in the movie, and this first clip I'm going to show is Heath Ledger's character is small as a child in this scene, and his dad is giving him up to the knight in hopes that he has a better life.
He's a real knight, William. Watch and learn all you can. It's all I can do for you, son. Now go, change your stars and live a better life than I have.
So the concept is that a man can change his stars. So later in the movie, Heath Ledger has become a knight, and he finds his way home back to London for the first time since that first clip.
Does he live? Aye, he lives. He is very well. He wanted you to know that he changed his stars after all.
Right. Oh, and Heath's just so dreamy. But I feel like I've changed my stars, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And I'm so proud of myself for doing so. And I reflected a lot about this when I turned 30 a month or so ago. I'm reflecting a lot on the last decade in particular and the things that I've achieved, you know, from academics, work, sport, human connections, you know, the amazing life that I've lived. You know, I've traveled and experienced so much, and specifically in the latter half of this last decade, and thinking about where I came from and where I was mentally and all that type of stuff. It's just, yeah, I feel like I've changed my stars, and, you know, I'm looking forward to the next decade and thinking about things that I want to do, and, you know, I want to do my own actual TED Talk, although the TED Talk on here was amazing. And also just thinking about, you know, what legacy do I want to create and leave behind for myself. If you haven't been able to tell already, certain movies mean a lot to me, and I've actually had a big paradigm shift in relation to my favorite movie of all time, Good Will Hunting. And if you haven't seen it, you have to. And what I've realized and what the shift has been is that I'm no longer Matt Damon's character in that movie, but I'm Robin Williams' character. And let me explain what I mean by that. We live and learn through stories, and the stories that we tell ourselves are the most important, because we believe the stories that we tell ourselves. And what I mean by that is, you know, what you're thinking about yourself all the time manifests and becomes belief. Same with the content that you consume, the people that you hang around with, all those type of things. But for me, in this sense, in this example, I've changed my internal dialogue from being the victim character, in this sense, the Matt Damon in the movie, to the healer, as in Robin Williams' character. And it's been a huge shift for me in changing how I'm living my life each day. And it's only been achieved through, you know, taking the time to get a deeper understanding of who I am and why, being proud of that, and continuing to think in that different way, change the narrative of the own stories that I'm telling myself about myself. The best monologue in the history of cinema is in this movie, and it highlights the need to speak your truth and to understand yourself and to share it. So the clip that I'm going to introduce now, I'll put the link into the description here, because if you don't watch the whole movie, at least watch this. And to set the scene a little bit more about the movie, Matt Damon's character is a troubled orphan that's got a brilliant mind, and some things happen that lead him to this therapist that Robin Williams plays, and upon first meeting him, Matt Damon's character just rips him to shreds off of a painting that Robin Williams' character has done, which leads to this huge speech about life that is what the full link will be. And he talks about all these things that you can make assumptions about knowing, but unless you've really experienced things, it's really hard to understand them. He talks about the Sistine Chapel and war and love and stuff. And then after explaining all this stuff, he turns to Matt Damon's character and he just hits him right up the middle with this.
Personally, I don't give a shit about all that, because you know what? I can't learn anything from you. I can't read in some fucking book. Unless you want to talk about you, who you are. Then I'm fascinated. I'm in. But you don't want to do that, do you, sport? You're terrified of what you might say.
And we've all been terrified to talk about ourselves in certain topics under certain circumstances. Last night I was in a situation like that, but it was so important to talk about it with the right people, for sure. But, you know, his whole point is that, you know, unless you're talking about yourself, how you feel, your experiences, what you've been through, and, you know, no one else is really going to understand. And sometimes they still won't understand, but there's so much to gain yourself from verbalizing things about yourself. And Just hearing it yourself when it's out in the universe. And I've talked already about that, disempowering it's hold over you and empowering yourself. But, even from a therapy sense, therapy is not just for when you're broken. Therapy is, just self-discovery, and you can never learn too much about yourself. And just one more thing before moving on from that. This guy, such an inspiration to me. If you haven't looked into his life too much, I really recommend doing it. Just his perspectives on life and what he went through. And there's a lot of resonance that I have with him. By no means do I feel like I have anywhere near the impact that he has, or am anywhere near the caliber of human being that he is. But I strive to live my life in a lot of ways that he did, and his perspectives on kindness and the way to treat people and the impact that he has on other people's lives. And I really just wanted to acknowledge how much I love him and miss him, and recommend everyone consume more Robin Williams content in your life. I want to shift gears and dive deeper into human connectivity. A thought that I had in this space recently, I noted down one of those other long notes. So I'm going to read that for you word for word now. Ultimately, as humans, we need each other. Not in an unhealthy, toxic way. That only happens when individuals have selfish intentions or act through fear and insecurity. But the need I'm speaking of is in a connective, empowering, energy-building and sharing way that is built through wanting the best for yourself and others. It's pure, it's undeniable, it systemically builds on itself, shared ideas, shared dreams. They gain more power when shared with the world rather than when they're just kept in the dark. Living this way gives others subconscious permission to do the same. So what I mean by that is when you're around others who lift you up, who are encouraging, who are vulnerable and share their feelings, it kind of unlocks the ability for you to do the same, even if you're not conscious of it at the time. Unfortunately, it's commonplace for people these days to be hesitant to accept love, to celebrate themselves and to celebrate others. And it reminds me of a scene in Pretty Woman where Julie Roberts' character says, "People put you down enough, you start to believe it. The bad stuff is easier to believe." Remember that line about the stories we tell ourselves being the things we start to believe? How you treat others is a reflection of how I think that you really treat yourself. And I'd recommend that you start paying attention to how you're treating others a little bit more, and the judgmental thoughts that you have about others. Because odds on, I reckon you're going to have some valuable learnings about what you really think about yourself when you reflect on those moments. I think I've learned that the people that struggle with love in general tend to be the people that don't love themselves. And I know that that's so cliche, but I think it all comes back to that self-love, self-understanding, self-appreciation piece. Like I really, really, truly think it does. And as the amazing Ted Bednarski always says, there's less judgment in life when you're living through a lens of love. And, to extend that doesn't just mean others. It really means yourself. Given where I was when I last did my solo podcast, and why I moved here in the first place, I couldn't do another one and not discuss relationships. I've realized that you don't lose yourself at the end of a relationship. You lose yourself either during a relationship or even at the start. I think that it's so easy for people to compromise themselves, to want to try and make something work, but you're only setting yourself up for failure in the end, and a sense of misalignment and something that's going to be much harder in the future. And I think that happens when you don't have a clear sense of self, or you do, but you're not willing to put that first, I think, in this sense. And I'm still sitting here single, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But I guess from the pain and the heartbreak and experiences that I've gone through, I would say that in the end you need to find someone that fits, that you can be completely open with. I feel like that energy will feel right, and what I mean by that is sort of like easy and balanced. And it's important to invest time in making meaningful connections, and I think that those are only formed through shared vulnerability, talking about how you feel, what you've been through, what's hurt you, what you're passionate about, what your dreams are. And the definition of being vulnerable is being open to getting hurt. You gotta risk it to get the biscuit. And I wouldn't say that I'm a hopeless romantic, but I do believe that on some level you do have to put something on the line in this space to make it work with someone else. But I do believe that becomes easy to do when you have a really strong sense of self, who you are, what your boundaries are, and how someone could potentially fit into that space. But to bring up Robin Williams again and Good Will Hunting, he talks about his wife in the movie who's passed away in the movie, and talks about all her little picadillos and the things that only he knew that made her his wife. And that's what it all comes down to, just being willing to be really open and transparent. I think that's pretty cool. Personally, I've started feelings for people again, and being rocked by it at times, I guess, given where I've come from. But again, proud of myself for really sitting in it and feeling it and learning from it, being open to learn from it, and understanding the importance in clarity and expectations, in relationships and potential relationships, but also being kind to yourself and realizing and accepting that feelings are feelings, and sometimes they suck, and sometimes they're great. I'm a genuine believer that people come into your life at the right time, even if it doesn't seem that way at first, and you just need to be open to those lessons that I was just talking about. And as my dear friend Simon says, it's important to pay attention to the curveballs, for sure. A quote from Sigmund Freud sticks with me when it comes to the way we think about love and relationships. I'm just going to read it out. When making a decision of minor importance, I've always found it advantageous to consider all the pros and cons. In vital matters, however, such as the choice of a mate or a profession, the decision should come from the unconscious, from somewhere within ourselves. In the important decisions of personal life, we should be governed, I think, by the deep inner needs of our nature. And this also reminded me of another discussion that Simon and I were having recently about no longer thinking about outcomes, but more so focusing on the process. Or another way of thinking about it is to value the pathway as opposed to the results, or dare I say it, the journey over the destination. In terms of my overall perspective on dating these days, I wrote down in one of those long notes, I'm just going to read it out as well. I've realized that I used to pretend to be someone else all the time as a kid, and that somewhat carried on into my romantic relationships. Now I catch myself wanting to go back to that, but I can't. I'm so proud of myself for being transparently me all the time now. For work purposes, especially in a sales sense, it's amazing. People connecting with me in the business for who I am and who we are. But romantically, it's scary. But I think I realized that maybe that was a part that was missing and why it never worked out before. And that maybe now I've finally given myself the opportunity to be loved and for it to work out, because I love myself and I'm proudly that person every second of every day. I think the best way to sum up where I'm at is the song The Heart is a Muscle by Gang of Youth. Listen to the whole song, but particularly from 3 minutes 32 onwards, so the last 1 minute 51, that in particular, just big resonance there. And honestly, listen to the whole album, but listen to it the way that it was meant to be listened to on vinyl, because that's a real treat. I also wanted to take the opportunity to genuinely apologize to anyone that I've hurt in this space over the years, because I didn't know myself better, or I was scared, or I was ignorant, or whatever it may be. Because I know I've hurt people because of this in the past, and I don't think it would be appropriate to talk about all the positive growth and the other stuff without recognizing that there's been a lot of hurt on both sides that's from there. by by the random chance anyone's listening to that is applicable. So yeah, I genuinely mean that. I just wanted to pivot away from the romance side of relationships quickly here. I missed one of my longest and best friends' weddings recently due to COVID, and watching Billy and Beck get married and seeing all of my closest friends from back home all together in one place was easily one of the toughest things that I've been through lately. And it really made me think about the concept of home being people, not particularly a place. And I felt so much love through those screens, and I just wanted to share my love back to all of you and my gratitude for how connected you made me feel, even though I was on the other side of the world. And yeah, I just love and miss you all so incredibly much. To close out the relationship piece, I think sometimes we get too caught up in life and forget about the little things and how simple and beautiful moments and things can be sometimes. I watched another absolute classic movie recently, Armageddon. If you haven't seen it, it's a Jerry Bruckheimer special. It's the end of the world, big asteroids coming, and Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck are off to save the day. And yeah, there's this scene in the movie before they go off to land and destroy the asteroid. Ben Affleck's partner in the movie is played by Liv Tyler, and they're just in a field, just having this really really cute moment, playing with some animal crackers. And I don't know, she asked him a question. I just think his answer is what it's really all about.
Baby, do you think it's possible that anyone else in the world is doing this very same thing at this very same moment?
I hope so. Otherwise, what the hell are we trying to save?
Let's not forget to appreciate the moment and let it seize us every now and then. So I've left probably the two biggest pillars and learnings and realizations of this entire podcast to last. So smart move given how long it's gone for, eh? The first one is the realization of privilege, the position of privilege that I'm in life, and the adjustments that I've made in my lifestyle because of this. And yeah, I had a tough upbringing, and I got the rough end of the stick when it came to some sporting injuries. But generally speaking, I'm very, very privileged. Now bear with me as I list these off, as I know it'll be painful for you to hear as it is to read, but I'm trying to make a point. So, I'm a white male in Western society. I'm tall, I'm fit, I'm healthy. I don't look that bad. I'm relatively clever, and I can put a sentence together quite easily under most circumstances. What I'm trying to get at is that I'm in a privileged position where I actually have choices in life and opportunities that not everyone's going to have due to their location, circumstances, abilities, genetics, whatever it may be. So I can choose to do the right thing for myself, for others, for the planet. So I do. This podcast, being vegan, breathing through your nose, I'll talk about it in a sec. If I can do those things, then I should, because I can. Even if it's fucking hard, because the world needs it more now than ever. I'd already started reducing my meat consumption, and I watched Seaspiracy and learned more about being vegan, so transitioned into that lifestyle. Yes, it's hard sometimes. I read a book about breathing and essentially that you should only really ever breathe through your nose. So I try to do that. It's hard. I spoke to someone who lived with someone who is transgender and learned how big of an impact it can make for people adding their pronouns to their emails and their socials, just to normalize it. It's fucking easy. I read about Harry Styles wearing a dress on the cover of People magazine and painting his nails to de-gender certain things and prevent bullying. It's easy. And I've lived out of one suitcase my entire time since being here and realized how easy it is to live a minimalist lifestyle and limit consumption. My point is that yes, some of these things might be hard, but there are easy ways for everyone to start making bigger positive impacts beyond themselves in the world. And consider the things that are going on right now. Like here in Canada, there's crazy heat and bushfires that are making climate change just so obvious. The horrific discoveries that residential schools, the systemic racism and the continued transgressions of the church, the broken nursing system here, like the amazing people that are under so much stress because of the issues with staffing shortages and mistreatment. All I ask is that you ask yourself, like, what am I doing to help with any of these problems? And we don't need everyone to do everything. We just need everyone to start doing something. From an even simpler perspective, you don't need a degree to help people. You can choose to be kind to everyone, to listen, to not do harm. And for me personally, I just want to help people and help strip back the corruptive, self-serving elements of the society that we live in. To take another piece from the Legacy book, which there's going to be a lot more actually in a sec, there's a famed architect and philosopher that once asked himself some questions that revolutionized his life when he was depressed and actually considering suicide. So this is what he asked himself. What is my job on the planet, and what is it that needs doing that I know something about that probably won't happen unless I take responsibility for it? I'm just going to read it out again. What is my job on the planet? What is it that needs doing that I know something about that probably won't happen unless I take responsibility for it? I hope everyone asks themselves that question after watching this. Now, with that question in mind, I wanted to talk about the meaning of life. And honestly, I think the simple answer is this. The meaning of life is to live a life of meaning. And we have an amazing business mentor through one of the programs that Justos is in. His name's Callian. I've been lucky enough to meet him in person, and we discussed this concept with him a little bit in terms of the concept of pursuing purpose versus happiness. And he explained it like this. He said that if you're pursuing happiness, you're probably never going to attain it because you're forever just chasing it. But through purpose, you can find happiness and fulfillment in the things that you do. And it actually reminded me of a story that I heard Jim Carrey talking about once about his dad. I can't remember exactly what the job was, but it was something that he did not really enjoy, and he just did it for, like, you know, just because you got to support the family type vibes and things like that. And the quote that Jim Carrey said is, you know, from watching his dad go through what his dad went through, he got let go for no real reason, apparently. He said, you can fail doing something you don't love, living a compromised life. So why not do what you love? Okay, last few Robin Williams videos, I promise. But another movie I'd highly recommend you watching is Dead Poets Society, again, for some of the monologues by Robin in the movie. Essentially, it's kids at a boarding school, and Robin's their poetry teacher. He used to go to the school, but he is really trying to teach him more than just poetry. And if you're not familiar, maybe you'd be familiar with this phrase from it.
Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. The Latin term for that sentiment is carpe diem. Now, who knows what that means?
Carpe diem. That's seize the day.
Very good, Mr.
Meeks.
Meeks. Another unusual name. Seize the day. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may.
Carpe diem. Seize the day. But it goes beyond just, you know, like, making most of the moment. He really sort of dives into, like, the beauty around life and a greater perspective on how to really get the most out of your time here. And he has them all in the classroom, and he pulls them in for a huddle. I think this may be where I got it from, not just sport, but he pulls them in for a huddle, and he starts to really deep dive into this speech about what really matters in life.
Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
And then he quotes a poem, and yeah, right at the end of this clip I'll show next, he, you know, brings that legacy element back into it as well, which is a common theme. It's not just realizing that your time here is limited and that there's more important things in life as well, but, like, what are you going to contribute? You know, like, what are you going to leave behind?
The powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
I'll put the link to that full speech in the description for this as well. I'll begin to close all this out by reading through a sequence of notes from the Legacy book that I've brought up a couple of times. This may be a little bit dry to some, but it really resonates with me, and I think it really ties in a lot of the different theories that I've talked about, what I will talk about to finish it off in a sec, and also just a really good summation of my growth and the things that I've realized recently. So I'm just going to read out these points from the book. Example is not the main thing in influencing others. It's the only thing. It's time for the human race to change. Consumerism, unfettered capitalism, environmental degradation and population growth is unsustainable. It's our responsibility to find solutions to the key issues facing the human race. A society grows greater when old men plant trees whose shade they will never see. Our social footprint is the impact our life has on others. It begins with character and it involves a committed inquiry into life's purpose. What do we hold most sacred? What can we pass on? What can we teach? We used to respect bankers and hedge fund vultures as though making money was enough. But after the collapse of financial standards, this is not true anymore. There's nothing wrong with making money, but as a sole ambition, it certainly isn't inspiring an emerging population that values human connection, social interaction, and authenticity more highly. People are looking for answers to the question that organized religion has supposedly provided for thousands of years. How do we live? It's likely that those who contribute a healthy social footprint will be those that survive and thrive moving forward. People want to believe in something bigger than themselves. Purpose propels and moves people. Muhammad Ali said that service to others is the rent that you pay for your room here on earth. But it's more than rent. It's about respect, honoring that which we are capable of becoming, being greater rather than good, playing a bigger, more expansive, more ambitious game. The word character comes from the ancient Greek and means the mark left on a coin during its manufacture. Character is also the mark left on you by life and the mark we leave on it. It's the impact you make when you're here and the trace you leave when you're gone. Character rises out of our values, our purpose, the standards we set for ourselves, our sacrifice and commitment, and the decisions we make under pressure. But it's primarily defined by the contribution we make, the responsibility that we take, and the leadership we show. John Wooden, great basketball coach, once said, "Be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are." And Steve Jobs said, "Your time is limited. Don't be trapped by societal boundaries. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary." Now I'll end this with two thoughts of my own that were two long notes that I'd written over the last few months. The first one is this. It seems the key to making the most of this human experience is understanding and accepting that that's exactly what it is, an experience. You ultimately determine how enjoyable it is, how fulfilled it is, or how wasteful it is. And the last thought that I wrote was, you don't get time back. You can't undo the past. All you can do is find meaning in what you do next, whether it's starting a business, learning a new skill, or even watching a movie or taking a nap. Each of those can equally serve a meaningful purpose for you at different times for different reasons. It's the accumulation of the decisions that you make, what you're willing to sacrifice, understanding what you can uniquely offer the world, and choosing what to do with it that will determine whatever legacy you leave behind. And remember, the only legacy that really matters is the love and resonance other humans have for you after you're gone. Not the money, not the fame, but the meaningful impact you had on the lives of others. The shared human experience, that's what it's all about. We're all in this together, so what makes you different? That's ultimately what I'm interested in. I certainly don't have it all figured out. All I know is that I know more about myself now than I did last time I did one of these. And I hope that there was one thing, one thought, or one idea in here that could help you learn something more about yourself too. In the meantime, love yourself, love each other, love the planet, and just know that I love you.